morning, good morning. I'm very excited to be here because in this theater I shared a little piece not only of my journey but of my heart with Antonio Perdichizzi many years ago. So I'm very glad to share this little piece of my journey with you today. Let's say she said that we started from food, but actually through food we were really, blessed, let's say, to touch many little parts of our life, of our history, of our roots. And we understood that through food, we can really take actions that can change the world around us. Today, I'm going to try to connect the dots. This is my favorite sport. And I want to, let's start from the beginning. The reason why we started from food. I started 12 years ago as a food entrepreneur, and I was very fascinated by the role that food plays in our life. When we talk about food, we talk about everything. We talk about our heritage, we talk about care, we talk about health, we talk about nourishment, but also we talk about the people that are taking care of our ecosystem, of the landscape, of the soil, of the health of the water we're drinking. And food is something that unites all of us. Food is a language. You don't need to talk the language of someone to discover its culture through food. But when we're talking about food, we are also talking about the greatest paradoxes of our era. So when we're talking about food, of course, we're talking about something that touches the fact that there's people, millions of people dying for food-related disease, but still we are facing a planet in which we have not yet solved the issue of people starving. On the other hand, we know how much climate change is dramatically impacting food production. But on the other hand, we also know that food production is probably one of the largest causes, at least for 1/3 of the global impact, or we can say that are standing on the shoulders of the food producers. And on the other hand, we're talking about another huge issue that is a cultural issue, that is losses and waste. I'm not just talking about food losses and waste because we're wasting too much around our life. So I was very fascinated by the complexity of the global food systems, and I started trying to count what were our resources available. And if you see the map of the global overshoot days, this map, year after year, is more astonishing because world resources are ending, but we also know that we need to feed 10 billion people. And so how much we're going to feed 10 billion people? And where we have to feed these 10 billion people? Well, basically, we know that the planet is going to change completely its shape in the next future. We're going to face a planet where Milan, as well as Tokyo, as well as a big part of the world, is going to be almost halved. And you all know that there's going to be part of the world where we will have a growing young population that needs food, needs healthy food, and probably are also some of the places that are facing the strongest issues from the climate perspective. So by thinking and rethinking how to better the global food system, of course we started not only framing 2030 and this 2050 with the 10 billion people, but also thinking about 2100. What's going to be the shape of the planet we're going to see in 2100? If we know and we see the pace of erosion and exploitation of the world resources. And so we started our journey, and we understood clearly that we cannot live healthy in a sick planet, and that food is the real nexus between the most essential things. Fertility, longevity, prosperity, all of those things are strictly interconnected. And so we decided to start our journey creating an ecosystem, not with a startup, but understanding that we needed to collect tons of different perspectives, solutions, generations to solve this issue. And we created an ecosystem that is grounded on three main pillars: education, community development, and innovation. And behind these big backbones, we wanted, okay, I'm going to use this and this. Perfect. We wanted to, let's say, accelerate the pace. And we understood that was critical to create innovation spaces. The speaker before myself, the professor, was saying that there's not going to be transformative impact without innovation, but you need also places that allows you to make this innovation happen. Because we strongly believe that we have been working too much in silo until now. Overall, if we're talking about food, probably you had the chance to read the big titles in the magazines. Let's kill meat, lab-grown meat. Let's invest in killing plastic. Let's change the model, just finding solutions. But we have been not narrowing the causes that really make this problem now so clear under our eyes. And we understood that creating living labs was crucial to start to co-design solutions with a bottom-up process involving the entire community, involving the startups, involving the families, the policymakers, involving the scientists and universities. And we started really looking for the ones that at the beginning were really investing in this kind of narrow approach. So back in 2012, we decided to fly to the Bay Area. And 2012 was the year in which someone started investing in food and tech. The first time that someone named the food tech investment was the year in which we had the first food hackathon. And we were there trying to understand what was moving this wave of innovators. And we understood that we needed to find kind of a compass to understand how culture, people, and technology were hacking our connection with the ecosystem. Understanding that technology was really changing not only the way where we were eating, that seems a simple thing, but changing completely our culture and our society. Before, someone was mentioning about technology adopted in food. If you go through the entire wheel of our compass, I'm always very astonished by seeing what has been the evolution, for example, of our kitchen. And now technology has been shaping our kitchen. When we used to have, before the pandemic, our office in Shanghai, our partners were telling me, you know, we're building homes without the kitchen. We are Italians. Home without a kitchen cannot be named home, is another thing. The kitchen is where there's the fire, where families come together, where we are preparing food for someone that you love. And the fact of cutting the moment of sharing around the table and sharing time together in the family is going to be something that is going to affect dramatically our society and the shape of our community. Now, if you live in a big city, you arrive at 8 p.m. at home. One son wants sushi, the other one wants kebab. I want a pizza. We don't even dine together. And this is something that dramatically is changing our relationship. And afterwards, we started working with scientists that started analyzing not only what's going to be the impact on our society, but how much all of that is affecting our mental health. And we started understanding that all of those touch points, from production up to the awareness, are absolutely critical for the health of humanity. And this was back 2012 when we started. Then we started working with the Institute for the Future, this interesting research team based in Palo Alto, and we started investigating, and we started understanding that food plays a very critical role in our life, because through food we can really reshape policies
at the community level, at the municipality level, at the rural level, that can affect our life. And starting from food, we can literally rethink our world. And that every time we gather around the table, we are strictly connected with a choice that relates to our roots, because what we're choosing to eat, for sure, has something that relates with our roots. We are celebrating with our community, but also the choice, what kind of food we are eating. It's organic, it's regenerative, it's vegan, is whatever. It's identifying yourself, and is a political choice. And so, of course, we started keep going. And afterwards, we wanted to deep dive even more. And we created this map, always with the Institute for the Future, that has been the Seeds of Disruption map that was published, and I know that there's someone familiar with this map, was published back in 2013, featuring the digital seeds of disruption in the food chain. This is what we see nowadays. And unfortunately, we have been investing too much in the last decades just on the digital seeds of disruption in the food chain, without focusing on the Rethink Food map. So without focusing on the social and the political aspects related to food. Of course, we started working with the community, with kids, with schools, with the entire ecosystem, with maker fairs. And we started creating many different projects that drove us up to 2015. 2015 has been a milestone for all of us. 2015, we were here celebrating the World Expo, the first event claiming feeding the planet energy for life. A global event that was connecting feeding, energy, life, Earth together. Then the SDGs were announced. Then in Paris, the Paris Agreement. Then also Pope Francis came up with the Laudato Si, saying that we cannot live healthy in a sick world, and talking about integral ecology. 2015 has been the milestones that started spinning up the process. And finally, we were not feeling aliens anymore. And finally, we started connecting all the different 17 SDGs to food, understanding that food is connected with every one of the SDGs. And we started understanding that this was not enough. And we wanted to explore, understand, and investigate. Probably there's a video. And we created a program. There was the master's program, the food innovation program, from where actually started our educational arm. We created a program involving 20 students, where a core piece of the program was a global mission, traveling in 12 different countries for 60 days. And in every country, we were talking with the Ministry of Agriculture, asking, what's your need? What's your problem? Connect us with the innovators in your country. And we were creating hackathon, tackling their challenges, leaving solution there. Bringing our students to feed rice, to talk with the farmers, to understand the needs of people. And we understood that critical issues around food are everywhere. And without touching the problem, you cannot really understand what's the real need. We understood that technology was our best ally, but was not enough at all. And we understood that was needed to start to talk with policymakers, UN agencies, European Commissions, of course, ministers of agriculture, but was not enough. Because when you're talking about food, you talk about health, you talk about logistics, you talk about many different topics, and also culture. But at that point, we didn't understood yet how much was important to connect with other policymakers that are as well critical. But at the end of the program, we understood that adopting design thinking was not enough. And we wanted to, say, speed up the process enlarging our approach to innovation. Innovation is absolutely fundamental, but just innovation based on the needs of people, it's not enough. So we understood that we needed different methodologies. Methodologies that we wanted was focused on building prosperity, prosperity for all. We understood that our approach to innovation was just counting the needs of our customers. We started making innovation involving all the planetary boundaries around the table, involving the community, and starting thinking that being sustainable is not enough anymore, that we need to tackle regenerative approach, leaving the planet better than what we found. And we understood that the models, very hierarchic models happening until now, were not sustainable anymore. Because if you are a super large corporation and if you are investing in regenerative farming, you need to understand that farmers are the key players. And you need to understand that you cannot design your product in Vevey and Switzerland without involving the farmers who are farming, that are going to tell you that tomorrow they're going to change the crop because they're protecting biodiversity, because they need to nourish the soil. And so the systems need to be transformed dramatically from the policy perspective, the structure perspective, the governance perspective. And this was the starting point that for us landed to integral ecology, and the integral ecological approach that we found in Pollica. I'm going to go probably 5 minutes over my time, but we decided with the pandemic that our cool living lab in Singapore, Shanghai, Tokyo, and so on were not what we wanted, were not what we needed. And before the pandemic, I had the chance to meet the mayor of this very cool, tiny municipality that is very famous in Italy for its centenary people. There are centenarian. You find grandmas and grandpas, 95 or 98 years old, living alone with no caregivers, with a bright mind. Happy. Of course, it's not a modern place, but it's a very cool place. And then in the same place, you discover that Pollica is in the heart of the Mediterranean, but of the geopark of Cilento, that is holding 1/3 of the biodiversities of the Mediterranean. And then I started talking with farmers and fishermen, and I discovered that the farmers there are almost all of them regenerative. Not because they have seen kiss the ground, not because it's cool. They always have been regenerative. And so you connect the dots, the grandpa and the grandma, the tons of biodiversity and the quality of the soil, the fact that since ever they have been awarded for one of the best seas in the entire Mediterranean. And then I see these numbers. The same region is the region that has the highest school drop rates in Europe and the highest obesity rates in kids in Europe. And I wanted to go there, and I wanted to talk with the teachers, but overall work with the kids. And I was doing a lab with the kids because I didn't want it filtered from adults. And playing with them, I discovered that they were super excited because a McDonald's was opening 2 hours away from there. And their dreams were to celebrate their birthday there, in a place where the grandpa is 98 years old, living alone, farming the best olive oil ever. And I said, okay, something is deeply broken. And we decided to open up our international campus exactly in this place. And I wanted to go deeper and understand how this place could serve the world and our community, and that anyway is a global community. And we created a campus where actually we are now also managing the permanent secretariat of UNESCO of the emblematic communities of the Mediterranean diet. And I discovered that me, stupid, dumb, ignorant, I never looked to the future, starting from the roots and from my roots, and that actually I had something in my hands that I couldn't unleash for the power it could explore. And I wanted to go deeper. And I invite you also to go deeper in this building to see the roots, because the roots are very similar. And I found out that the place where we were, the same place with the grandpa and the grandmas, is the place where Parmenide and Zeno in Magna Graecia, they were already debating about the need of finding an equilibrium between humans and planet. They were talking about the speed of life. They created one of the first medical schools 3,000 years ago, the same place that was hosting at some point the Salernitana Medical School, that is exactly a celebration for peace. The first medical school of the Western world was not created during a war, like what we see in the Mediterranean every single day now. Was created by the knowledge of Jewish, Arabic, Greek, and Latin together. And this was the starting point. And then afterwards, the scientists, Ansel and Margaret Keys, after the World War, decided to move exactly in the municipality of Pollica, and they codified Mediterranean diet. They were physicians, but they were physicians where in their book you read about practices, about the learning they found within the community, the living heritage. And the Mediterranean diet that you see is not a list of ingredients, is a cultural framework that is putting the planet at the epicenter. And this was the starting point. Was declared an UNESCO heritage, and this territory was able to maintain the same ecological consciousness, the same ecological awareness. And I want to show you how is now the concept that we developed, that is the concept of paideia. That means integral ecological development. And from there, we decided to start the entire campus, where innovation is working not in a silo mode, but where our education community innovation framework is all together, and where in education we are training mayors, we're training youth, we are training almost 2,000 people every year. So the village became an educational village where the community is part of the entire process, as where innovation is connected, like you see in this map. And here you see what is happening every single day in the campus, and we transformed the territory in a learning territory for everyone. And when we're talking about the people who are leaving this village, we're talking about people that are completely part of the journey. And this process at the beginning was involving one mayor that through this journey 5 years ago decided to start to co-design things with also other people, with us, with our community. He decided to change the urban plan. He decided to start to participate to many projects and grants with other mayors. He decided not to be an island. And we started co-designing everything. And now at the campus, we're training 1/3 of local students, 1/3 of Italian students, 1/3 of foreign students. And students, we are also students. Students have every age. And we understood that tackling the connection with local administration and local policymakers was absolutely fundamental. And we started working with networks that are talking a lot about inclusion, racism, of course, the topic of ecology from every different perspective. And these places are crucial and very critical nowadays. Probably the European ones in these years have seen the word living lab in many grant proposals and many programs. I see digital living lab. We don't need digital living labs. We need living labs where you can really play with all the ingredients of the society. And this is exactly what is happening there. And now the same mayor is the one that is leading a group of other 13 mayors with a strategy that became a regional strategy. And the schools involved is not one, but all the schools of the regions. And this is creating a kind of a positive ripple effect. And next week, we're very glad because we are going to present the next campus that actually came up out of something that was absolutely unexpected. The dean of a very important university in Italy, the University of Florence, with the metropolitan city of Florence, 2 years ago, came to us saying, hey, we want to replicate the model. We have 350 hectares that needs to be regenerated. We have a huge village that is almost dying. Please come and let's co-design the solution. So now we are replicating this in a second campus that is going to be presented officially on November 6th. And 4 more are basically under the opening in Northern Africa, and 1 more in March is going to open in India. This model last year has been featured at the G20 in India as a model to regenerate marginal areas. And in Japan started again another program in our campus in Japan, tackling exactly the same issue, and where we are trying to connect the dots and trying to bring positive inspiration from this model that can be applicable also in big cities. Because at the end, these remote rural areas that are everywhere in the world, I'm talking to you about a little story of a tiny place, but there are millions of tiny, beautiful, incredible places protecting our heritage and all our resources that can be approached exactly in the same way. And this is something that can be and needs to be applicable everywhere. And the model is this one. We started connecting the model with the ESG model and, of course, talking with many different stakeholders, many different donors, philanthropists, impact investors, industries that really want to transform their environment. And the projects are there, are tangible. More than 90 projects are part of this big mosaics. Because when people are asking me, who's funding you? Oh, pay attention. I have a list of a gazillion of many different fundings because this is a nightmare to fund. And this is something that at the end need to tackle health. Because at the end of the game, what we are measuring is the health of our citizens and the cost of health, where everything is interconnected. So this is one of the projects of the campus. We targeted also cancer patients, and we're working with Common Italian, Susan G. Common, with women, understanding after 2 weeks of trainings, changing diets, breathing a different air, changing lifestyle, how much this training is affecting the cure after having breast cancer operation and getting ready for the chemotherapy. And at the end of the game, this ends with this project of the algorithm for longevity, where eat well and stay well, the claim of Ansel and Margaret Keyes, for us is eat well, stay well, and save the planet, that became for us the real mantra, where the algorithm of longevity is the big things that we are trying to codify, to replicate what you have seen in every kind of environment. Thank you so much. I was a bit longer. And actually, I strongly believe that this is a huge force of good, because all of the dots that you have seen in the algorithm, I'm not stressed about living 200 years, not at all. Longevity of our planet needs all of you. So thank you so much for the work you are daily doing, whatever is your role in the society, because we need this force of good to be exponential the real force of good that needs to be exponential. So thank you so much.